Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Did I Save, a gaming podcast where we kind of talk about games past, present, and future. And today's topic, we're going to talk about 5 games you wish you could replay for the first time all over again. Today here with me, I've got long-term. It is a long-term relationship. I got long-time friends over a decade. Jared and Ryan.
Jared.
I'm Ryan.
Hey, you guys.
How's it going, guys?
It's good to be here at last.
So good.
It's been like a year since you first said, do you guys want to do a gaming podcast?
Hey, it is.
And I felt like I was enthusiastic when I said
thought it
yes.
was a thing that wouldn't actually happen. So I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. He tried to play it cool. I did not.
Yeah.
Came on very strong. Neither one worked because it took us a year to get here.
Shook my phone when you were like, "Want to come over and do a podcast?" I'm like, no.
I couldn't have said no any faster. Yeah, that's right.
But it's a top 5 list.
Right.
We're going to have 5 games that we think it's impossible to go back and experience the way it was the first time it hit us.
So you have to
Our first love.
forget everything about it.
Yes, exactly.
Mind white.
Secondly, we're going to do honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And more than anything, I think that's going to help kind of outline why one made the list and another one didn't. It's just going to give us a little bit of
And I
context.
think because we've been friends for so long that we know each other well, and we're going to try and take a stab at each other's lists
Yeah,
a little bit.
it's going to be fun. We're going to all try and guess one item. What you want to do number 1? What we think will be number 1?
I think we should do what you think would be number 1.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay.
And yeah, they can say as much as they want to give, I guess.
Yeah, it was initially something when you were like, let's do games that we think it's basically impossible to like re-experience. I was like, boom, 5, top of my head, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that was 2 weeks ago, and then even up to this morning, my list is actively falling apart. I just I am trying desperately to figure out what qualifies, why it qualifies. So I've got some criteria that we've like chipped away at, but I still feel like even on our own bespoke lists, there will be different reasons that these games are on here.
If I had another week or even another day, the list would change.
100%.
Yeah.
So
You guys have to keep talking or my list is going to change.
That's right.
So I think one of the big things for me when I think about like what makes a game impossible to go back to in that original experience, it can be a lot of different things, but I think for me a big thing is like where I was at that time and what was it about that game that really spoke to me. Sometimes a game is just very good, just mechanically just hits so good, and I've got some of those games, but more importantly I think it's like games that really shifted my perspective outside of gaming, that helped me to like develop my identity as a person. That's what makes these games important to me. So that's kind of my key focal point of like, other things may be true, but at their core it was like a defining moment for me as a gamer and as a person. So I'm going to be talking more along, you're going to get story time out of me most likely, because a lot of this stuff is so wrapped up in the context of where I was at that point in time that it's going to be super important to understand. And plus, this is our first episode. Nobody knows who I am. I'm not from any other platform, so I've got to kind of introduce myself through my list. So buckle up.
If your mom,
Because you guys are about to hear a lot of stories you've already heard before.
your mom will know you and she's listening.
That's true. Shout out to mom.
That's right.
For me, the list at first, just like Jared, was super easy to put together. I was like, oh, video games immediately came to my mind. I put them on the list. And then it's like, well, maybe not this game because there's newer games that have blown this game out of the water. And so I try and separate nostalgia from these, because if I erase my mind of this game, then nostalgia is not going to play any factor into these games.
Right.
So therefore, it has to be a game that stands the test of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I tried to pick games I think would do that. And like some of these games have even changed what I like artistically, like music I like. So if I erase my mind of these,
I think that's really important. Is like
Yeah.
it defined your taste in a way. I have
and
games
I think that's
like
what
that
you
for sure.
were actually leaning towards and saying.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying. I also think that there are games on my list specifically because they do not stand the test of time.
Exactly.
They are games where if I tried to go back and play them again,
Yeah.
they would not hold up.
You saying those are on your list or not on your list?
They are on my list
Ah,
because
see, I took those
it's literally a game that I cannot
off.
go back and re-experience for the first time. It's
right.
not.
It's not possible.
Yeah. If I went
So-
in a time machine back and played that game, I would have to wipe my memory because just knowing the context of where games have gone sometimes it's just like a moment in time. Like it'll be clear as I go through my list why that is the case. But
Well, no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what about you, Taylor? Because I think, were you working on this before you pitched the idea to us? Have you actually had a longer time to work on your list?
did you cheat, Taylor?
No, I just thought that I think we have like a really cool opportunity because we grew up in, the 90s and, the 2000s and obviously where we are today. But I think that we had a really cool opportunity because we actually got to see the gaming landscape change in real time.
It's evolved. The generations we've seen every generation gap of video games.
Right.
Besides Pong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
exactly.
we go far enough back that we had to read magazines to learn about games.
Right.
Like there was a time in our lives where I was scouring every inch of a magazine every month just to learn everything I could.
And I try and play video games now with that sense because, like Dark Souls, for example, if you go into that game blind.
Spoilers? Are these spoilers?
You get so much you get so much more out of the game, in my opinion, if you disregard pretend the internet doesn't exist.
Oh,
except for the multiplayer.
Right.
That's interesting. That's a conversation that we'll probably get into a little bit more as we go through the list. That's kind of our loose criteria. We'll qualify as we go, I guess. It'd be the easiest way to just keep everybody on the same page, including listeners. Our list structure, I think, is going to be, we'll go from 5 up to 1. If at any point one of us says a game that's on someone else's list, we'll just hold and we'll wait until we get to whatever list it's on at the highest point. So if it's number 4 for you, but it's 2 for you, we'll wait to discuss it until we get to 2.
Yeah.
And then so we don't have, multiple conversations or people like holding back their thoughts during one conversation or whatever.
Sure.
And then when we get to number 2, right before everybody says their number 1, we will talk about our honorable mentions to build up a little bit of suspense for what our number 1 picks are.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, my honorable mentions are not ranked.
Okay.
Yeah, mine are.
Okay.
Not either.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Honorable mentions were like
The top 5 was hard enough, man. Don't.
yeah. It's almost like when I replaced a game in my top 5, I just moved it down to my honorable mentions. And then even some of those, yes.
I kicked him off the ledge,
Yeah.
wherever he lands.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I guess we should get started. Talon, this was your baby for the project. So do you want to start with your number 5?
My number.
Wait,
We should
you
take
don't,
a stab.
because we have to take the stab.
Okay.
I don't know what your number 1 will be, but I have a guess. So what's your guess for him?
It's really difficult for me to say. I know there's some games I know that Talon loves, but there's also some games that I don't play, so he doesn't talk about them as much to me.
Yeah,
Like, he loves the Resident Evil.
that's true. You do love horror survival games.
Indeed.
But I'm going to guess something in the Fallout series.
Oh, that is a good
Interesting
guess.
pick.
That is a
Okay.
good
If the audience could
If
see
I had
the
a
posters in
specific-
this room, they would
probably
be
disagree.
shouting something different.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a more specific stab and say Fallout 3.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to say Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
That is also a really good guess.
Okay, cool.
Not my number 1.
Okay,
But
okay.
Well,
both amazing games.
okay, that's a good guess. Well, I don't know how far back your list goes, but to my understanding, you kind of recently got into strategy games.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I have games that are recent. It's just they hit me so hard that I'm like, man, even if I play this game again, it's not going to be that new experience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want to go ahead with his list, or should he guess ours?
Did we get any of those games on your list?
We'll know when you say them.
Okay.
And then,
True.
just so the audience has full context, if either one of us guessed correctly, then we get to guess why before he gives us his reason.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with you, number 5.
You're number 5.
on
My
your
number
list.
5.
Yeah.
Number 5. But this is where the sound
Of your
effects will
top.
go. Number 5.
Okay. Number 5 of the top 5 games I wish I could replay for the first time all over again would be the original Resident Evil 2.
Ooh, I should have went with that. You said 2.
Resident Evil 2.
Okay. The original.
The
So you don't get
for
to
the
guess. You don't get
PS1.
Okay. So I personally am not a huge survival horror fan. I will dip my toe into the genre if it's Deadly Premonition, classic. But
Woo, yeah.
I just don't. especially with the Resident Evil series, has never really clicked with me. So
I think,
walk me through it.
And I think the remaster just came on Game Pass too.
Oh yes, it did.
I think
it did.
I downloaded it.
Yeah.
I was going to play it.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about
And it is
playing. I'm thinking about playing 4 in VR. I think
That sounds amazing.
would be pretty good.
I agree.
That's
So
good.
it's also a game.
Okay, so
So specifically, going back to when we grew up in that time period, you know what I mean. So I think Resident Evil 2 came out in like 97, 98, and so I didn't play it until I was like probably 12. So obviously, playing a mature rated game, you got the little explicit.
already
Yeah.
Cloud 9.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got
My
the
mom would be
explicit,
so mad.
scenes of gore.
Did your
and
parents
violence.
let you play the?
No. I was playing it when my parents weren't home.
Exactly.
And that's the thing.
Okay.
It was like my sister's
You're
old
good boy.
boyfriend let me borrow her PS1.
Yeah.
Had
Amazing.
the double disc.
I was going to
Resident
ask
Evil
what
2,
system you were playing.
And I was exactly because
Two
I grew up
discs.
on N64. PlayStation I didn't even know anything about. Of course, at this time period, I've only played, Ocarina of Time or whatever you could rent at the store.
Yeah, I mean, that's
For
yeah.
N64. Or
Most
whatever.
people do not realize the struggle of renting games and you were going off box art.
We
most
never
of the time.
owned Ocarina
Right,
of Time
exactly.
or
You had
Majora's
no idea.
Mask.
Yeah, it was
but
all
they would let me pick a game every time, and I'm just like, get the same
Get
game.
the same game.
and just hope it's the
Exactly.
copy your save is on.
You've spent
Yeah,
more.
right. Yeah.
You've spent
That's right.
$100 on Ocarina of Time at this point. You
Yeah.
should have
Yeah,
just bought it.
Right, you're right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, first time experiencing survival horror, it's like, Leon is a rookie, doesn't know anything about, and I that was like my first real dip into a game with a narrative, because all of the games that I were playing at the time were just platformers, basically. They don't really have a story, and it's not a deep story, if it does have anything,
Oh, I disagree.
Platformer 99% of the time, especially back then, was like evil guy took something.
Right, exactly.
I got to get it back.
Yeah, and I got to collect 30 of 5,000 things to get to the boss battle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, they're zombies, and they're all rendered in 3D, and they're moving at you, and there's all these crazy animations, and then you'd blast a zombie, and then they would fall down, but then they would still come at you, and it's like, what is this game?
Some stuff you have not experienced before.
You're
Yeah, yeah.
not experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just waylaid by the concept
Yeah.
that a game can scare you.
Right.
Like I can definitely relate to that
Exactly.
experience
I
of just
don't-
being like, games do this?
Yeah.
That's right.
And-
And it had like inventory management, and that obviously heightened the tension.
I guess
You know
so,
what I
yeah.
mean? It's just like you can't run out of ink ribbons. You got to make sure you have enough ammo, and you're not sure if you're gonna make it. And then here comes Tyrant, coming through the hallways, and you're like, I don't even know what the heck is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the main character gets injured, and it's just like all of these things in a culmination of like the music and suspense and the horror elements. You finally go into a room that you've been into 100 times because you're backtracking.
Is that the mansion one?
No, that's the one that takes place in the police department.
What's the one with the? It's like a haunted house.
That's the
feeling.
first one.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
the only one I've actually.
Is that the Jill sandwich Resident Evil?
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Yeah. You were almost a Jill
That's the
sandwich.
real horror of
That's
that.
the real horror.
That game
yeah.
is the voice
acting. Yeah. And so, once you, I've never played anything like that at all. And obviously, if I could go back,
So you didn't play the first one.
no, I didn't
Second
really.
one
I didn't
was-
even know anything about it. Really,
Yeah.
I
I
was
think
just
it's-
like, you just see the cover art because it's like. It just says Resident Evil 2, and it has like this crazy bulbous eye that's all like disfigured, and you're like, I want to know what that's about.
100% true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
Okay.
you said,
Yeah.
it's
I didn't
like
see the
back
case
then.
till you said eyeball, and
You're
I
right.
immediately know
Yeah.
what case you're talking about.
Yeah, and
I didn't even play it.
and then you press start, and it's like Resident Evil 2.
Oh, that's
And it's
good.
like, what am I even set up for? I'm like looking around the room.
You
making
don't sound happy at all.
right. Exactly. It's like making sure mom and dad aren't around.
the neighbors
You
just see
know,
Caitlin peeking through the windows every 10 seconds.
That's
Oh,
right.
I can't let my parents know evil lives here.
So, but that was my first step into, a narrative, and then there's an even deeper, with all of the science experiments happening underground, and it's just, it's an expansive world. Never experienced anything like that. You know what I mean? And that was my first foray into obviously survival horror. And
It's
what it
interesting
means.
thinking about like games that are on my list and listening to you talk about this experience is like how much of our life is spent like chasing that high of like when that thing, whether it's a movie or book or whatever, hits you in that way, and then like that becomes a defining characteristic of what you enjoy. And then now like horror survival is like the thing that you don't even like, if someone tells you that about the game, that's what piques your interest. You don't need to know more to be interested. You know what I mean?
You think it's something that changes your characteristic of what you like about a game, or it's just something you found out about yourself?
I think it's both. I think not everyone has the same reaction, obviously, but I think that like when you have the realization that that is something that you find deeply compelling, that's when you start to shape your identity around it by finding more things and kind of cultivating that culture.
You can have an opinion of when a new game tries it. Is this good?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this a good take on it? Because so many people have done it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to do number 4?
We'll do. I want to go around.
Yeah.
You'll go around. Okay.
So go
I think
ahead
that sounds good too.
I think it sounds more fun that way.
All right.
Do you want to go next?
I'll go next, but I need to look at which one was number 5.
Okay.
Now, in the meantime,
Already
let's
filler.
guess Ryan's then.
Yes, we do still need to guess. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
y'all won't guess.
There's-
Well, okay. No, I was thinking you're trying to guess my number 5, but yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
You're just trying to-
Okay.
I'll go first.
I have my gut
You guys
reaction,
don't even
and I
know
feel
me.
like yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And I'm not trying to throw anyone for a loop.
I feel like Ryan was like, well, I'm not putting that one.
I
Right.
never did that.
I'm not letting the boys get the best
I
of me
never
on
did
this
that.
one.
I never did
Okay,
that.
then Elden Ring has to be on this list somewhere, or at the very least, Bloodborne. It is a Souls game is on this list.
Okay. That's
Okay.
not fair. Go ahead.
You just guessed like 8 games.
I do have.
I have 2 Souls tattoos on my arm. That's not fair.
I do wish. Well, obviously, I've made a list separate for both of you guys for later on.
Yeah, you
or
did
whatever.
more homework than
Yes,
Yeah,
at the end of this episode, Talon made a full list, which we weren't not. We just didn't have
He kept it a secret.
the exertation of energy to do that. So at some point after our lists, I am very interested to hear what your full lists
But-
for us
yeah,
were.
yeah.
I wish I had
Yeah.
thought to do it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, we're just stupid.
yeah. We're just
So I'm just gonna have to go with the classic, which is Dark Souls 1.
I think that's a safe bet.
It
I think you're a
is.
coward, and that's a safe bet.
I wanted to go with what I. Well, we'll once we get there, I think it'll make more sense.
Okay.
All right, but go ahead.
Okay, so my number 5, which is funny because Jared mentioned it earlier, and we're gonna have an
I
argument.
know. I've been playing it cool a lot
We're
today.
gonna have an argument of it essentially.
Okay, cool.
And
love that.
This is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
Okay.
I love this game.
Okay.
This is your number 5.
This is my number 5.
Wow, I'm actually surprised.
Yeah.
I had a hunch, not that it would be 5. So
I love tactics games. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance was mind blowing to me. Like, cause I was in chess club as a kid, early on, like 2nd, 3rd grade, and then
and you were like, what if my chess pieces could be little ninjas?
exactly. What if I had a million more options, and also the aesthetic was appealing to me, and yeah, I loved everything about it. Like,
I had a teacher that in high school that told me I should learn to play chess, and I literally thought to myself, but I play Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. It's like a better version of that. Why would I ever do that?
Yeah, yeah. But I never played a game that was like grid based. I never played Fire Emblem until I was.
We should, for listeners that don't know these, especially the older games, we should probably give a little more context about what this game feels like.
It is a game set in the Final Fantasy universe, but it is not turn based like your other JRPGs. So it is turn based, but you get to move around a grid base, and this is squares instead of hexagonal like some other games. So it's just grid based game with elevation into it. So you have like archers, if they're higher, they can deal more damage. They have better accuracy. Mages too, things like that. But for me, the compelling thing about this game was the art behind it, the music behind it, and just like the amount of customization to a team of units that you could do, which I had not seen in a video game before. I played other strategy games before, and I have another strategy game on my list, and it's higher up on my list. But this one is like, it's really hard to rank these two, I guess.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is not on my list because I feel like that genre has been iterated on so many times that there are games, for my personal taste, that are strictly better. That I if I went back to that game, I'd be like, oh, this other game does this so much better.
I love the jobs, though.
That's what I was gonna say. The thing is, like, this is on the Advance. This is a long time ago for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this system was like in Final Fantasy 9 or whatever. You have a cast of characters. They are unique individual characters, and these are scripted events and blah blah blah. In Tactics Advance, you're building a roster. You're basically building this battalion of allies who all can change their job at will. And as they advance in jobs, they unlock new jobs. So to become a ninja, you had to master 2 other jobs, and then you would go up this tree and keep that process going.
And your characters changed the way they looked, like the Dragoons in that game.
Yeah.
I would just have a whole team of Dragoons.
It's great. It's really great. Yeah. Do you remember the story in that game?
No, didn't care about the story.
There's a little boy. He's like...
I remember the intro.
The age I would have
played
been.
it a million times, where they get sucked into a book.
Right. He's like, at the tutorial of that game is you and other kids on the playground are having a snowball fight.
Yeah.
And then you get pulled into another world.
So you're fighting with snowballs.
It's really it was really interesting because he was my age. And that could happen to me if it would just snow already.
He's got that one little hair.
Yeah, yes, he does. Is there anything else that you want to say about Advance?
I think I'm moving on from Advance.
All right.
Then it's time for you two to guess what game is going to be on my list. Good luck.
Okay. You're number 1? See, I have a really hard time trying to...
Shower me with praise.
Define.
Taylor.
Okay, for
I'm
the
so
audience,
different and unique.
It's actually the opposite.
For the audience,
But I think you like every game the same. It's
No.
probably Call of Duty, isn't it?
No.
I should say for the audience, in terms of video game preferences, Jared's differs from the group the most.
I feel like Jared goes out of his way to play more obscure games because he's just he just likes to play so many different types of games.
Yeah,
and because, Ryan and I are very similar in the games that we like to play. And when we try to get Jared to play these specific games with
now it's
us,
coming back around. I was like, this sounds very
where
complimentary.
he tries to play, he's like, yeah.
He
And
likes
then,
he likes those hole in the wall restaurants, and he likes those hole in the wall video games.
Call me what I am. I'm a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
I love everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
in all seriousness, though, I really do I love branching out. I love seeing... I form my identity through the context of experiencing other people's perspectives. Like that is what I love to do. I love like games like Papers, Please.
Yeah.
Games do not have to be fun for me to enjoy them.
Papers, Please is a game I've looked at 100 times, never played.
Never played.
Yeah.
I want games. I want anything I experience to be meaningful. I don't care if I enjoy it. I care if it is valuable to me.
Yeah.
Every game that you do like, though, I'll go on Steam and look, and it's like overwhelmingly positive.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, if there was one thing I could do for a living, if I could just get paid to tell people about cool things that I think they'll like, I feel like that's what I would do. Because I genuinely do just love introducing people to things that I think they'll enjoy.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do. And today, I feel like everyone kind of needs an escort in today's like gaming book movie market, because there's just overwhelmingly so much stuff to filter through.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested to see what you guys think.
Mine's a stab in the dark, and I really don't even have a decision yet. Taylor, do you have a decision?
That is a stab in the dark. You're not even stabbing.
Yeah. I'm just holding
Readying
the knife.
just readying the knife.
I feel like I can definitely pinpoint at least one or two.
Okay.
Now, your top game that you wish you could replay for the first time all over again, that I feel like eludes me significantly more than just trying to pick one that's at least on your list.
Interesting. I don't want to give away too much, but my number one
Don't even know.
is the most obvious, because it's like, what else could it be?
Okay.
Like, I just had no choice but to make it number one.
Okay.
But the rest of them are games that I wanted to find games that when I said them, people listening would be like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that game in forever. It was so good. I should go back and play it.
I have a guess, but I don't know the name of the game.
That's a very interesting guess.
Okay.
Taylor,
To
where are
me,
you?
Man, it's tough.
You're nowhere. You
It's-
don't have a guess?
I have the problem is I have too many guesses.
Okay.
I have too many guesses. The game that I think that you wish you could replay for the first time all over again.
The most?
I don't. Yeah, or whatever. not the number one. That's the tough part. I'm gonna say Spec Ops: The Line.
Interesting choice. Very interesting choice.
I don't know if it's your. I don't think it would be your number one.
No, I like the gumption.
But-
I love that guess. That's very cool.
I have a guess. You have to help me get the name because I don't know how to Google this. It's on Steam though. It's a single player game. It's got pixely graphics, but the game changes. Yeah, Undertale.
Undertale.
Yeah.
Undertale.
Undertale.
That is a great guess.
You know why Undertale's not on my list?
Why?
Because it frickin' rules. That I've replayed that game
can- yeah,
in the
that's
last
a game you can
4
replay
months.
over
I've
and over.
replayed Undertale.
I have never played it.
I love that game. I'm getting Natalie to play.
I have
through it
also
right
never
now.
played it.
I don't know if it will hit you guys the way that
It's-
it hits me, no matter when you play it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
about
yeah.
the time. It's about like what you value in games and what you value in art is like, depending on how you feel about that stuff, it might hit you and you might be like, this game feels a lot like most other games.
Yeah.
I think you would definitely enjoy the writing. The humor in that game is amazing. And not to go off on a tangent about the guesses, not our lists.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure this podcast will go on long enough. But yeah, Undertale is an amazing guess.
Okay, so you think both of ours are pretty good guesses?
Very good guesses.
Okay, all right.
Probably better guesses than my guesses.
Okay.
We know you.
All right, go ahead, man. Fire away.
Okay, so my number 5, let me double check real quick. Yes, okay. So number 5 is a little bit different than my other choices because it was a time in my life. And getting friends together, no matter what we're doing, is always a struggle, especially if it's more than 2.
Yeah.
And I
Especially
feel like
now.
this game is such a product of where I was and like the opportunities I had to do absolutely nothing all the time was Bad Company 2. Battlefield Bad
That was
Company 2.
almost my guess, man. But I was like, you said Halo, wouldn't you? Would never replay Halo.
So the thing is, the way that I would differentiate these two things is with Halo, the reason it's not on my list is because if I go back and play the first Halo right now,
Yeah.
it's going to feel so good.
Yeah.
That game is so timeless.
Specifically
to me.
the
It is a
multiplayer.
classic. Not just the multiplayer, but
about
especially the multiplayer.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, even single player, I love those games. I would go right now and replay all 3 of the Halo games, not counting Reach. But I'll play
We almost
Reach if
did.
you want.
We
We
actually
almost
discussed
did.
playing through the
Yes,
Halo games.
I
and,
downloaded them. Never.
I did too.
3 kept crashing. What's up, Microsoft? What's up?
Yeah.
But for me, Bad Company 2 is, and I have played every a Battlefield game after this one, hoping that it will be.
And I went along that ride with you
Yes,
for a bit.
You did. You really did.
Strung
and
me
none
along.
of them. So the thing that for me made this unique is I guess the beating heart of my reason is that I had 3 other friends who not only would play with me on a nightly basis, but we all liked it enough to take it seriously. Most shooter games, it's like you play a few rounds and then you're ready to move on to something else, or you know, everybody's taking it to different levels of seriousness, and one person is like really invested and the other people are just kind of there to have a good time. That's how League of Legends always goes with me. I have found over 20 people to play League of Legends with me, and only 3 of them still play.
And I'm not one of them.
And yeah, and neither of you are those people. But with Bad Company 2, it was like there is 4 different classes. And with the other Battlefield games, I feel like what they've done is they've shifted their focus towards scale. We're talking about a first-person shooter military game where everything is destructible. That is kind of the trademark of the Battlefield franchise for anyone who's unfamiliar. And as their games have gone on, they've gone more and more action movie, where they focus on things like
More
huge
towards Call of Duty.
scale. Yes, more towards Call of Duty, but they want to be like very grandiose about it. So like you'll be in a jet and you'll eject out and you'll launch a homing rocket launcher at another jet and you'll blow it up, and then you'll cut your parachute and fall back into your jet in midair and then take back off. And they think that's super cool. And that is super cool, except that will happen once in the 100 hours that you're playing that game. And the rest of the time you're going to get spawn camped by a bunch of snipers and you're not going to have a good time. With Bad Company 2, they took these big maps for 64 player fights or whatever, and then everything else was like 32 or 24 on console, I think, and they were chunks of these big maps. So it was much smaller. everybody had a unique role to play, which is a huge thing for me in these games. That you have like an engineer who focuses on repairing and damaging vehicles, because there's tanks, there's jets, there's drones, all that stuff. You have a recon person who is marking targets, who's setting up traps to keep your rear flank covered. They're sniping people if you're lucky. There are medics, which is like I typically play support roles, so I'm out there like reviving people. And then there is the assault, that is just like your core dude who's out there with a machine gun dropping ammo for people. And when you're all working together, at the beginning of these missions you have, or these matches, I guess, you have these huge structures that are all very destructible, and your goal is to defend or destroy a point. So you're going and you're planting a bomb in this location.
Much like Red Faction Guerrillas multiplayer.
Don't get me started on Red Faction Guerrillas multiplayer. I'm still bitter about it.
I got it. That's not on the list.
But it's not on the list because I still like it a lot and nobody else does.
Yeah.
There's like 4 people online. And so in Bad Company, what I really like is that the focus is shifted to a much narrower perspective, where it really matters, like even within each class, you are making trade-offs where, like, if I want to have a rocket launcher for my engineer class, then I have to forego my repair kit or whatever. And there are lots of examples like that where even within a certain class, you are specializing. And then the rest of the group over time, they kind of adjust their given role to balance that out a little bit more. And then throughout these missions, even within a match, when it first starts out, it's very tactical because there's tons of buildings and you're trying to sneak in and you're trying to plant the bomb or whatever. And then as the match goes on, that sniper that keeps spawn camping you from halfway across the map, you get in a tank and you just level the whole building, or you go plant C4 underneath him or whatever. And not only is he dead, but he can never do that again because now the building has been leveled, right? So then as you're progressing through these matches, there are fewer and fewer places for people to hide and take tactical action. And so by the end of most matches, it is you and your 3 squad mates huddled under one wall of this building that's left standing, frantically trying to protect this bomb while it counts down. There's bullets everywhere. The sound design is fantastic. The more things that are happening, the more like muffled everything gets. You're constantly screaming orders at each other. Like nothing matches the fever pitch that Bad Company 2 was able to reach just by focusing on like very intimate moments with your squad and small focused maps that would go from big, more complex strategy down to raw skill over the course of one match. Like the way that it evolves and develops even within each instance of the game that you're playing, we played that game to death. I mean, we played it for at least a couple years, and I think it's one of Battlefield's lesser loved entries in terms of the company itself. I mean, they admitted afterwards that they did not expect that game to be very successful. And so after you reach like rank, I think it's like 50 in that game, you stop unlocking things except like a little badge. But it like goes up to like 200, and we just kept it really takes a lot because I'm always playing so many games. It takes a lot for me to hang around in a game when I don't feel like there's any progress left to be made other than just bragging rights. And I've never really cared about bragging rights because I'm not good at most games. I just enjoy the ride. So that has to be in this list for me because that is an experience that I have tried repeatedly to recreate over the years and have never been able to. Even with the finals, which is the same studio or the same group,
Yeah, I've heard some good stuff
it's
about
only 3 players. The destruction is
per
very
team.
cool. Per team with 4 teams or 3 teams. I'm not 100% sure. But it just is just off. The maps are just a little too big. The skill or the abilities between the 3 classes, like light, heavy, medium, are just a little too disparate for me. There's a lot of elements of it that just don't line up quite right, and it seems like they always just miss the mark with these games. And I don't know that there will ever be another Bad Company 2.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that's because they're not making a game specifically that's tending to your needs, or they just can't make a game literally as good as Bad Company 2?
I think that I think it's two things. I think one is that I am probably no longer their core target audience.
Yeah.
I think they're chasing Call of Duty players
A newer
because
generation.
I play a Call of Duty once every 10 years or so. I'm not a huge, like, I love first person shooters, but story is very important to me. And like I said, I'm not sweaty enough to really compete in multiplayer games. So I'll never be that player. I'll never buy Battlefield every year. But I feel like they, as a development studio, have lost touch with what makes their games compelling because they've seen diminishing returns on, as far as I know, all of the Battlefield games since then, at least.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Is I don't think I've ever really heard you talk about an FPS.
A first person shooter.
Oh, he's
yeah,
talked
yeah.
like hanging out with Jared. He's talked about Bad Company 2 quite a bit.
Now, a very specific FPS, obviously.
yeah.
I totally understand. Just because of how, when you're passionate about a game, you're really passionate
me,
about.
it's-
If you love a game, dude, you're going all in, man. And so
It's all you think about.
You will stop and you
Yeah.
will listen to Jared talk
That's
about the
right.
game.
all you want to do is go to that friend that you're playing this game with and talk about this game.
100%.
All you think.
Yeah.
Like Halo, well, that was Halo for me. You're a Bad Company too. But I shy away from role-based games, shooters, and you go towards them. And I know you said you're bad at video games, but that may play towards the role-based games where if everyone plays their role and you're playing against a team that may be more skilled than you, but they're not playing their roles. They're doing more lone wolf style on a 4-man, 3-man team.
Yeah.
You're going to wreck them. Even though your team may
9 times out of 10.
if you have good communication and you're playing your roles right, then
And that's something that requires time, I think, is the thing. It's like you need like that short lingo of like how to communicate a lot of information quickly.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people just aren't willing to spend that much time and get familiar with the game enough because they're not really enjoying it. And I feel like some of those games, you end up in a situation where the longer you play it, the more you like it.
Yeah.
But in other situations, it's just like, I've invested a lot of time in this and it's actually not getting any better.
Yeah.
And I think that's happened too many times with my group of friends in particular, to where like the finals is free and I've only been able to get a couple of my friends to play it with me at any point in time because it's just, there's too much out there and it's just, there's not enough enticing to them. I like even saying it's the people who made Bad Company 2.
Yeah.
What does that mean anymore?
Right.
is it even the same exact
Yeah,
people or just
yeah.
the same title? Like
Exactly.
Yeah, new people
Same
moved
company.
into the same. Yeah.
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 That's just saying. Rare's making Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Man, I played the pirate game and it was fine.
Yeah.
That's my reaction to they're making Skull.
Yeah.
Like
But it's not
okay.
the original team with, you know what I mean?
If you
It's
tell
just-
me the mind behind such and such game is making this game, then he's
Yeah,
driving,
if it's
he or
more
she's
of
driving
an
the
like
direction.
an auteur situation
Yeah.
where it's like, you know, Miyazaki is working on a new Souls
Yeah.
game
Oh.
is way different than
Right.
Yeah.
this game feels like Dark Souls.
Like
Right.
Dark Souls 2 was like not behind the original
Right.
team, to my
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
do a
think
whole lot
that's
of
right.
research on it, so it definitely felt off the entire
Right.
time you're playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a beating heart to. I think that's the difference for me. Is that Bad Company 2 at the end of the day feels like it was made by people who cared a lot more than the games that are being made now do.
Yeah, and that's probably true.
Probably true.
So
Talon, what's your 4?
I actually got to look it up because I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me just go ahead and get my 4 in my head so I can be more articulate about my answers. like
Well,
Jared
if everybody
was.
else is doing it, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, my list is unhinged. Go on.
All right. So my number 4 might surprise you guys.